Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Wisdom Wednesday series. From the top. Hey, welcome back to the Wisdom Wednesday series. If you're new here, I started this series for two reasons, right? The first is to share some of the amazing lessons I've learned in my life with you. But the second and most important reason is, if you didn't know, you learn more through teaching others. So it's my hope that by me sharing these lessons with you, I can better internalize them and put them into practice in my life. So with that being said, let's get right into this one. Um, there's a quote I heard by a guy named Russell Brunson. He said, "You can tell who the first time entrepreneurs are because they're probably laying face first on the floor with arrows in their back," or something along those lines. Now, what does that mean? It means that most people who start their first business run out into the battlefield with no game plan, just an idea and a desire to make it work. And they don't stop to think, wait, has anyone been down this road before? Has anyone else figured this out? Right. And so that's the problem. A lot of people are DIYers, right? Do it yourselfers, right? They want to do everything themselves and they want and everyone wants to be self-made, right? Being a self-made millionaire is a term that I'm not sure when it got popular, but I feel like you hear it more and more nowadays with the rise of, like, again, these business gurus and stuff like that. Everyone wants to be self-made, and depending on how you were brought up, it can be really hard to want to even ask for help a lot of times. And so here is again the problem. The problem is that most first-time entrepreneurs are just literally trying stuff without first thinking, like, hey, has anyone else done this before? Right? They're doing it themselves instead of figuring out who's done it and then learning from them. And here's why that's a problem, right? One, it takes way longer to achieve success. Right? If you're doing everything yourself, if you're not asking anyone for help, if you're not relying on anyone but you and you alone, uh, it's going to be way longer. It's going to take way longer for you to achieve anything meaningful, right? There's that old African proverb: if you want to if you want to move fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So doing everything yourself is cool and it can help get you started and off the ground. But again, if you want to do anything meaningful in life, you're going to need a solid group of people. Right now, the second reason why not asking for help and trying to do everything yourself is a problem is you kind of end up in a problem loop. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of times you repeat the same problem over and over again until you get the lesson. But here's the hard part, right? The problem never shows up in the same way twice. So you think you got it figured out, but if you haven't actually like really internalized that lesson, right? If you haven't actually figured out what's the root cause of the problem, then you're just going to keep facing it over and over and over again, right? And so having help can help prevent that, right? Just having a second pair of eyes or a third set of eyes can help you figure out what the problem actually is and solve it way sooner and kind of get yourself out of that problem loop. Um, Third reason why doing everything yourself is a problem is you get this false sense of like pride or victimhood. Like, oh, I did everything by myself and no one ever helped me. I did it on my own, or whatever. And most of the time is because he didn't ask for help, right? A lot of people just never ask for help, and that's why they never get any. Right? There's a good old saying I love to use, right? A closed mouth don't get fed. And so a lot of people are doing everything themselves because they don't ask for help, despite having people who would help them around. Right now, there's sometimes you're in a situation where there's people who will help you, but then throw back in your safe, in your face. That's one thing. But a lot of times, in most places here, at least in the U.S., right, there's usually some sort of like entrepreneurship business networking group within an hour, right? Scrape together some money, take a train, take a bus, run, do what you got to do, but find a way to get there, right? And you can, I guess, especially in major cities, right? You live in any major city, metropolitan city like New York, Atlanta, LA, Miami, any of these major, Vegas, major cities, there's some sort of business entrepreneurship group, right? Guaranteed. There's some sort of chamber of commerce. There's some sort of BNI. There's some sort of like BNI spinoff nearby. So a lot of people, again, they don't get help because they're not asking for it. And then the fourth reason why not asking for help is a problem is because start to feel super alone. Right now, I did a Wisdom Wednesday series on the difference between being alone and being in solitude. Uh, I'm talking about being alone, right? Entrepreneurship is already a pretty lonely journey, right? Especially as you climb the ranks, right? The most business owners never succeed, right? Most business owners fail within the first 5 years. And so if you think about it, right, let's say you're a business owner, right? You're already a small percentage of the population. Now let's add the fact that you've been in business at least 5 years, right? That makes it an even smaller part of the population. Then let's say you've been in business 5 years and you also are making $1 million a year, like you're part of a very, very tiny portion of the population. And so again, it's already a lonely journey. And when you don't ask for help, when you try to do everything yourself, it just gets that much lonelier. And after a while, it will eat you up. It will eat you alive, just being alone all the time, all the time. Again, we're social creatures. And so I highly recommend not doing everything yourself. Now, what is the solution, especially again as a first time entrepreneur? Get a mentor, right? Or multiple, right? Find a community of some sort, right? Find people who have gotten the results that you want or are currently have the results that you want. And let me tell you about how I learned this lesson. So around this time, this is winter break from fall 2020 semester into spring 2021, right before I dropped out. I signed up for a wholesaling course, right? Took it. Long story short, attorney was like, hey, you can't do that in Connecticut. You can. Story for another day. But I was like, all right, he's the professional. I guess I can't do it. That's what the professional said. So I kind of dropped that idea of getting into real estate wholesaling. Fast forward, I went out to eat at my old restaurant job with one of my buddies at the time, and he bumped into one of my old Boys and Girls Club counselor, and he was gone for like maybe like 10, 15 minutes. I was like, where'd he go? So I went to go look for him, found him talking to my old counselor, and they were talking about real estate or whatever. And he was like, yeah, John, we're going to connect on a Zoom call with one of my buddies who's in real estate. And I was like, okay, can I hop on a call? I think he offered to have me on the call. I was like, cool, yeah, like, I'd love to hop on. I get on his Zoom call, right? And I remember this guy, shout out to Adam. That's my first ever, I guess, mentor in this business world, I guess. Um, I remember him saying at the very end of his call, I don't remember anything else he said, but at the very end, he was like, make sure you get yourself a mentor. And so I remember right after we hopped off the Zoom, I was like, hey, you said we should get a mentor. Would you mind being my mentor? And I wrote that in like an email, sent it over, and he was like, yeah, I don't mind. And so he was my first ever mentor. Then he connected me with somebody else. And so I was meeting with the two of them leading up into the time of me getting into real estate. Right. Then once I got into real estate, I found a bunch of free real estate groups. Right. One of them asked me to teach a class on social media. And then that led to me teaching my first class. First class ever, had almost 440 people registered for it. We had almost 205 live on a Zoom call itself. Like, again, that was off my very first class. I was 4 months into the real estate business, had only done one rental. Like, I'm a nobody in the real estate space. But because I was in the community, right? Boom. Then from there, long story short, I met another mentor along the way, and he kind of like reassured me that if I were to drop real estate and go into my social media at the time, teaching business, that was a good decision. And so helped me get into that. And then that led to that next journey that I was in. Then from there, right, I remember I got another mentor. Shout out to Jason. Jason was probably the most impactful mentor of all my mentors. He's how I got started teaching AI. And so I was with Jason for years, 2 years to be exact, a little over 2 years. And he helped me go from, you know, working at a restaurant, not making any money with my business, to, having a successful launch, made more in a day than I made in an entire year, which isn't crazy. I made 20K in a day, which is a lot of money to make in a day. But like 20K in a year is laughable almost. And so, but I did, like, he helped me through all that. And in 2024, when business was rough and money started getting tight, a lot of our conversations switched from like business tactics and and practical strategies to like just like almost like therapy. It was therapeutic talking to him about all the stuff that I was kind of going through. And although it might not have been the most productive business wise talks, like not everything has to be about business. A lot of business is your mindset. And I was definitely going through it 2024. And he helped me through all of that, kind of helped me find my groove again. And so big shout out to Jason. But again, when you find the right mentors, right, it can be a game changer for you. Also, it could be a horrible thing for you, right? If you find the wrong mentors, right? And then specifically for the fellas, right? I talked about finding like alpha males, right? Alpha male gurus. Those guys, a lot of them are weird. Stay far away from. But when you find a right mentor, it's going to help you again accelerate the learning curve. And so, why does finding mentor works? Right, you get guidance and support. Right, again, and I'll use Jason as an example. Jason helped me so much with like thinking about launch strategy and thinking about like ways to increase my show rates, ways to make my offer more, uh, you know, more appealing, right? More undeniable, right? He also again gave me a lot of support. So the days where I wasn't feeling it, the days where I was kind of out of it mentally, the days where I was just like, F this, like I'm ready to scrap all this up and just start something else. Like he was there through that all. So finding a good mentor, a good community of people who are on the same journey gives you that guidance and support. Second, it helps you shortcut the learning curve, right? It helps you shortcut. A lot of times you can learn something. You got to learn everything in order to find the one nugget. Whereas when you have someone who have already gotten the results, they can just give you that one nugget from the jump and many other nuggets that you'll need following. Like, especially if you've been to someone who's already passed where you wanted to go, and started from a similar starting point, they know the whole process A to Z, right? Let's say your goal is G. They know A, B, C, D, E, F. They know G, which is where you want to get to, and then they also know all the letters that come after it, so that once you get to G, you're not there, and then there's a saying like new level, new devils, right? Once you get that goal, then you have all these problems. They already been past that, so they know what to come and how to prepare you, not just to hit your goal, but what's to come immediately after, right? So it helps shortcut that learning curve. And then one of the, I guess the most important reasons, you save so much time, energy, and money, right? A lot of people, when it comes to mentorship, like they look at the price point, like, oh, that might cost a lot of money. Oh, he's charging me X per month for this or X per month for this community, right? There's a difference between hard cost and opportunity cost, and most people never weigh in the opportunity cost, right? What is the opportunity cost? It's the cost of what you could have done um, with that time, right? So let's say you work 40 hours per week and you make $10 an hour, right? You're making $400 per week, right? At the end of the month, let's say there's 4 weeks, you're making $1,600 a week, right? Now, let's say there's a coaching program that costs $400 a month, right? You're thinking like, damn, that's a whole week's worth of work, right? That I'm gonna be losing out on every single week. That's what most people do when they're doing their calculations to see whether or not something's gonna be worth it, right? Oh, I make 1,600 a week. I pay 400 a month for this mastermind, this mentorship, this coach, right? That's like a quarter of my money right there, right? That's a week's worth of pay right there out the window. What you don't factor in is the opportunity cost. Because what if this mastermind can help you make, instead of 1,600 a week, let's say they help you make 1,600 a month. Let's say this mastermind can help you make 5K a month, right? And you're only investing 400. So now the opportunity cost is, well, if you're not part of this mastermind and you're only making 1,600 when you could be making 5,000 a month, that's $3,400 a month right now that you're missing out on because you're not taking the coaching, mentorship, mastermind, necessary to help get you to that stage of making 5K a month, right? There's Alex Hormozi talks about this a lot better. He talks about the ignorance tax, right? He said, what is your annual salary? And then do your 1 million subtracted by your annual salary. So if let's say you make $50,000 a year, 1 million minus 50,000, you're making 900. That's 950,000 right there. Each year you pay $950,000 in what Alex calls ignorance tax or ignorance debt for not knowing how to make a million. Because if you knew how to make a million and you wanted to make a million, you would. But because you don't, you're paying. You're losing out on that, right? Each year, right? That ignorance tax or whatever he calls it. So again, the problem is trying to do everything yourself. Don't do that. Dumb idea, right? Be smart. Find someone who has either gotten the results that you want or currently have the results that you want, and seek them out, or find a community of people who have similar values and are headed to the same goal. Find that, surround yourself with those people, and that's going to help you shortcut the learning curve, help give you that guidance support you need, help you save a lot of time, energy, and money, and help you just overall have more fun in the process, right? Again, you don't have to do everything alone. Business is already lonely as is, so it's going to help make everything way more fun. So that's all for this Wisdom Wednesday episode, and I'll see you in the next one.